There were fires burning on the surface of the water.
I am happy to answer the grand jury's questions and look forward to telling them everything I know, with the hope that it will help them in their investigation.
Highly intelligent, complex social animals. They're not the King Kong animal that's depicted at all.
Looking at the elegance, glamour, you know, everything a woman would want to be. Jackie.
We conclude that, taken together, this is evidence for early life on Mars.
Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
Hello, and welcome to Images of 1996, the year in review. I'm Chuck Scarborough. We've seen a lot of changes over the past 12 months. A deadly bomb rocked the Olympic Games in Atlanta, along with our sense of security. We re-elected a president, appointed a new queen of pop. We watched as a fairy tale wedding ended in divorce. And a member of Camelot took a bride. Hollywood said goodbye to some of its biggest legends. And the Material Girl said hello to maternity wear. But the biggest story of 1996 began with a flash in the sky off the coast of Long Island. Those fireballs were the remains of TWA Flight 800. By nightfall, the burning wreckage could be seen scattered across the waters off Long Island, the flames casting an eerie glow on the dark, murky surface.
It was difficult to see that it's dark, and you can see searchlights playing over the waters. You could see that there were a lot of things floating in and around the water, but it was difficult to see anything more than that, although there were fires burning on the surface of the water.
The 747 had taken off from Kennedy International Airport just minutes before, carrying 230 people from New York to Paris. At 13,000 feet, there was an explosion. Almost immediately, there was a frantic search for survivors. There were none. A makeshift morgue was set up along the beach as searchers pulled bodies and wreckage of the plane to shore.
If you find anything that's crash-related, either on the beach or in the water or anyplace else, don't touch it, don't do anything with it. It may be part of a chain of evidence that will be necessary later on.
As the night wore on, the mood turned somber as the full scope of the tragedy became clear. Today, a memorial to the 230 victims of Flight 800 marks the spot. And while relatives and friends will never get over their grief, the residents of one small Pennsylvania town were left to wonder, why us? Church bells in Montoursville mourned the loss of 21 people, including 16 students and a teacher. Members of the high school French club had worked all summer to pay for a class trip to Paris. They were remembered as kids whose lives were short, but full.
Bright, personable. I mean, just look you right in the eye. How you doing? Good to see you. You know, just big smile. I mean, always.
At the high school, condolences poured in from around the world. And for the relatives of the victims, it made the grieving a little easier.
It felt good to know that she was so well liked, and she is missed, and she won't be forgotten.
I was looking forward to her growing up and thinking of how nice it would be to just be her friend, because she was really interesting and fun.
As for the cause of the crash, it continues to be one of the most baffling mysteries in aviation history. Was it a bomb, a missile, mechanical failure? At year's end, investigators still don't have an answer. The TWA tragedy wasn't the last time our sense of security would be shaken. Incredibly, just 10 days later, there would be another explosion, this one in Atlanta. The excitement of the Summer Olympics was shattered by a bomb. Centennial Olympic Park was rocking with the sounds of a concert about 1:15 on the morning of July 27th, when suddenly a loud boom roared through the area. A powerful pipe bomb exploded at the base of a tower used for lighting and sound equipment. One person was killed by the blast. More than 150 others hurt. Almost immediately, authorities zeroed in on this man, Richard Jewell, a security guard working in the area at the time of the blast. The FBI searched his home looking for clues, confiscating several boxes of personal items.
They're going to conduct investigations this way. I think we all ought to be scared as hell.
Jewell was repeatedly questioned by federal agents. Finally, 3 months after the bombing, a judge ordered the FBI to charge Jewell or drop him as a suspect. Jewell was freed, and the investigation continues as we head into 1997. Those two tragedies 10 days apart certainly stunned us as a nation. But we all felt the shock and maybe a loss of innocence over the death of a 7-year-old girl on a cross-country adventure. Flying was a passion for 7-year-old Jessica Dubroff. The first grader was trying to become the youngest person to fly across the country. But on the morning of April 18th, after a stopover in Cheyenne, Wyoming, her dream ended when her plane crashed during a thunderstorm. Jessica, her father, and flight instructor were killed instantly. For residents in the Northern California town where Jessica grew up, it was like losing their own daughter.
She wasn't cocky about it or anything like that. It was just, well, I've been taking horseback riding lessons and I'm going to fly across the country.
While Jessica was honored for her courage, her death touched off a firestorm of debate over parental and media exploitation.
Isn't she a bit young?
Children should be allowed to express themselves.
The FAA is now reviewing regulations covering young pilots, and parents are left to question a system that didn't allow a 7-year-old girl to just be a kid. 1 month later, a ValueJet flight went down in the Florida Everglades, killing 110 people. Cockpit tapes indicate the plane was on fire shortly after takeoff. For families of the victims of Flight 592, hearing the tapes was hard but necessary.
You need to know what happened. Even though it's painful, you need to know. That helps you begin the healing process.
The plane may have been on fire before it ever left the ground. Highly flammable oxygen canisters had been loaded improperly into the cargo hold, prompting a public apology from the cargo company president. A reign of terror that lasted nearly 2 decades finally ended in 1996 with the arrest of the man federal agents say is the Unabomber. 53-year-old Theodore Kaczynski, a one-time university professor, is charged with sending bombs through the mail that killed 3 people and wounded 23 others.
We realized that this is quite an intellectual serial killer, the most intellectual serial killer the nation has ever produced.
Kaczynski had eluded police since 1978. In fact, this sketch was all the authorities had to go on. They finally got a break in the case when Kaczynski's own family discovered writings in their Chicago home that were similar to the Unabomber's manuscript published a year earlier in the New York Times. Kaczynski is scheduled to go on trial in California in 1997. One of the most important medical stories of 1996 involved a radical experimental operation. 38-year-old Jeff Getty went home from a San Francisco hospital last January after receiving a bone marrow transplant from a baboon. Getty has AIDS and knew the surgery was risky. The doctors hoped the baboon cells, which are resistant to the main AIDS virus, would restore Getty's immune system. Getty went home full of hope.
I didn't know if I was going to survive. I had a fair amount of anxiety, but I felt like, I think my partner said it well. He said, "You made your bed, now lay in it." I'm hoping that this year, 1996, we will look back and say this was the year that we began to turn this disease around.
However, preliminary tests a month later showed that few, if any, baboon cells had grown. Still, Getty's health improved dramatically, results his doctors could not explain. And researchers say the operation provided invaluable information about the safety of cross-species transplants. Our obsession with losing weight got a big boost in 1996. The Food and Drug Administration approved Olestra, a fat-free synthetic oil used in potato chips, crackers, and other snacks. Taste tests got mixed reviews, and Olestra does have some potential side effects, including intestinal cramping and gas. The FDA also approved the first new diet pill in 23 years. It'll be sold under the brand name Redux. You can expect it to be the first of many anti-obesity drugs to hit the market in the months ahead. But perhaps the most dramatic image of 1996 took place at a suburban Chicago zoo. A 3-year-old boy fell 18 feet into a gorilla exhibit. As witnesses watched in disbelief, a female gorilla with her baby gorilla on her back approached. She gently picked the boy up and carried him to a door where zookeepers could rescue him. The whole thing was captured on home video.
It's incredible. I mean, we're standing here, it's hard to leave, you know?
It couldn't have ended any better.
Miraculously, the boy was treated at a nearby hospital and released a few days later. What an amazing story. This was also an amazing year in politics. When Images of 1996 continues, we'll look back at the winners and losers.
When we put our minds to a problem, we find solutions.
Welcome back to Images of 1996, the year in review. I'm Chuck Scarborough. 1996 might be called the rebirth of Bill Clinton. Just 2 years ago, the talk wasn't if the president could win re-election, but which Republican candidate would beat him. However, when the votes were in, Bill Clinton became the first Democrat to win a second term since FDR. And for Republicans, it was a bitter defeat.
May God bless you and may God bless America. Thank you very much.
As the spring primary season melted away, so did the Republican presidential challenges. Kansas Senator Bob Dole stepped down from Congress to make one last run at the White House. By the time the convention opened in San Diego, the only question was who would be his running mate. The 73-year-old Dole chose former New York Senator and pro football quarterback Jack Kemp. But it was Dole's wife Elizabeth who stole the convention spotlight by walking into the delegates and delivering a stirring speech.
And Bob Dole, if you're watching, let me just warn you. I may be saying some things that you in your modesty would never be willing to talk about.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
For the Democrats, the convention in Chicago became a carefully orchestrated event, even down to the whistle-stop tour, timed to deliver the president just in time to deliver his acceptance speech. The showstopper was an appearance by actor Christopher Reeve, paralyzed a year earlier in a horse riding accident.
When we put our minds to a problem, we find solutions. But our scientists can do more. We've got to give them the chance. And that means more funding for research.
By the time the presidential debates took place, the issues quickly became clear.
There's no doubt about it that many American people have lost their faith in government. They see scandals almost on a daily basis. They see ethical problems in the White House today.
4 years ago, we had not only rising unemployment, but a lot of rising cynicism. I'd never worked in Washington as an elected official. It seemed to me that most of the arguments were partisan, Republican, Democrat, left, right, liberal, conservative. That's why I said tonight I'm for opportunity, responsibility, and community.
Senator Dole tried one last gasp, a 96-hour non-stop cross-country campaign swing. It wasn't enough. On Election Day, the Clinton-Gore ticket prevailed. It even carried that traditional Republican stronghold of Orange County, California. But the president's coattails didn't reach Congress. The Republicans maintained their majority in both the House and Senate.